and welcome to Transformation Now. We are dedicated to education, support, programs that will be very encouraging to you in life, health, career, relationships, giving more humor, hope, help, and heart into your life. And I would like to ask you two questions as we get started with today's program. One is, have rejections, pain, and a crazy past affected your present life and your future? I bet they have. Another one would be, would you like to hear some steps of overcoming a past filled with obstacles that try to hold you back?
Today's show, exciting program with Toby, Meyer. Santa. You're Santa. Okay. Use life's history lessons to create a new beginning. Could you tell us more about that?
Yes, in a minute. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft, and I'm founder, producer, and host of Transformation Now, which is part of SoaringHigher.rocks. As a speaker, author, and trainer, I'm very dedicated and devoted to providing career and life-changing programs that you can start using immediately and ones that will last a lifetime.
Hello, my name is Carmelita de la Guardia, international cabaret singer and pianist and songwriter, also translator here in Omaha, medical translator, Spanish and English, and I do a lot with international women's issues. So welcome today.
And now I would like to introduce Toby Meyer, who's an inspiring man. He's a beacon of light and life, and he will share a story of overcoming so many painful, trying things that many of us have had to go through that are very tough, and he's overcome them. He is co-owner of Crown Roofing with the tagline that says, "We treat you like royalty." And I can guarantee a girlfriend actually introduced me to him because his team had done such a phenomenal job on her roof. And so remember that, it's Crown Roofing when you need help with, it's like roofing, windows, siding, gutters, all of that. So you want to remember him for that. And then also, Toby is a most incredible Santa, and we will talk about that today too. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Excited to be here.
So Toby, you shared quite a heart-touching story of your growing up years and how it impacted your current life today. Lots of challenges here. Please share with us.
Interesting is definitely a way to describe it. My mother was very young when I was born. She was 15, as a matter of fact, when I was born. So you talk about school when you do home ec at school, and they change the diaper on the doll and all that kind of stuff at school. Mom didn't worry about the doll. She just brought me to school. So we went through that with a biological father that has no desire to know who I am. I've met him a couple of times, but that's as far as it goes. He no desire whatsoever, so you have that kind of rejection there. And, Mom was married and divorced a few different times, and different abusive stepfathers or adopted fathers at the time, because everyone she married, she forced them to adopt me or they wouldn't get married. And then when they would start abusing her, then we'd leave. She did eventually marry a gentleman that took pretty good care of her, but by then I was already, 8, 9, 10 years old. So, my younger years were over by the time he came into the picture. But, he's been a pretty good dad. I no regrets there.
So he's still a father figure to you now?
He's still a father figure. Okay. Him and I butt heads on quite a regular basis. I've got the utmost respect for him. He's a phenomenal guy, great businessman. But as a father, him and I have definitely not seen eye to eye, and that struggle has been a challenge. So.
Well, and it's even with fathering your children too. I mean, a lot of times we follow the pattern that was set for us as we grew up. And I know one thing that you mentioned when we were talking previously was that with these men that your mother brought into both of your lives, they kind of used you as fair game. I hate to say that, but that really broke my heart until they started abusing her, and then she would leave them. But up to that point, it was really tough.
There was one individual that I remember quite clearly of my bedroom was a cot. It was an old Army cot is what I had for a bed growing up with him. I remember getting his boot in my chest as I got pushed down the steps. Very physically abusive. And then, but that was, kind of forgotten and overshadowed. So, but then when he turned his physical abuse onto my mother, that was when we packed up in the van and left. So, the abandonment issues didn't come from just the biological father.
Right.
It almost felt from my mother as well.
Exactly.
And some of that, I'm sure, is 'cause, a 15-year-old girl doesn't know how to raise a
No.
doesn't know how to raise a child, and that's got to be a struggle for her as well. So
Yes.
there's forgiveness there and acceptance of it, and I move forward from it. So
And that's awesome, because a lot of times people can't move forward from what happened. They still keep reaffirming those things. Well, I guess I deserved it, or why did he do that? And I know personally, abandonment and rejection are two of the worst things to try to overcome. And that's where, as we'll talk about a little bit too, how God can really get into our hearts and change that and show us that we are so loved.
Yeah.
We're so special. We're made in His image. So that stuff, because I've had to ask God before, please forgive that person through me, because I can't do it myself. And He's always been faithful with that. I know life again took a very difficult turn when you were in the Army. During wartime in Somalia, and you endured PTSD and some really rough trials. You just want to share, we have plenty of time, you want to share some of the things that happened to you then and how that affected the rest of your life?
sure, I spent 10 years in the military. While I was in the service, I was married twice and divorced twice. My first wife left me while I was deployed to Mogadishu. So I did a combat tour in Mogadishu, Somalia. Everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with the movie Black Hawk Down.
Yes.
That was the time period I was in Somalia, so I was there for that engagement. I remember coming home, and my uncle's a Vietnam vet, and I went up to my uncle, and I'd had the opportunity to do some training in the jungles down in Panama, and it's the only time in my life I've ever been lost. I had no idea which way was up, let alone which way I was going. So when I came home from Somalia, I went up to my uncle, the Vietnam vet, and I says, Jim, I just want to shake your hand. And he looked at me kind of funny and as to why. I says, well, I've been to the jungle, and I didn't like that. I says, and I've been to combat where I didn't know who the bad guys were, and I didn't like that either. And I couldn't imagine putting those two together at the same time in the same place, and I just wanted to shake your hand for going through that. And I think he was kind of dumbfounded by that,
Wow.
by that remark. But that's how I felt about it. In Somalia, you didn't know who the bad guys were. And,
Oh my.
I was sent over there in a surveillance capacity where it was my job to try to find those guys with a camera system. And the same guys that are coming onto the base camp during the day, cleaning up, picking up trash, taking care of different things and all that kind of stuff were the exact same guys that would go out at night and throw mortar rounds at us in the evening. So, you don't know who to trust, you don't know what to trust, and it just made for difficult times.
So just, could we expand just a little bit more on PTSD as far as things that you might want to share with viewers? Because I know so many people have gone through it, either because of abuse, because of war, or so many different things that have happened.
Well, you add to some of the, some of the background growing up, some of the way I was growing up, the physical abuse and things like that, and then the depression that kind of goes along with those kind of things until you come to the acceptance and realize that, okay, I understand why this happened. It doesn't make it right, but I understand it, and I try to move forward. You combine that with the high stress of a combat zone, where you've got sniper rounds coming within a couple of inches of you. And mortar rounds coming in and rocking your vehicle and rocking where you sleep and where you eat. And friends of yours getting hit with shrapnel from, walking back from the shower, with their towel and their bag in the middle of the day and getting hit with a mortar round just out of nowhere. So those images and that high stress, it just kind of sticks with you, and it's hard to relax from that. It's hard to trust from that, and that's kind of what the PTSD does to you. It makes you hyper vigilant, and you're constantly questioning, what's their motive, what's behind what they're doing, and, can I trust what that person's saying, or is there something else going on? Always knowing where the exits are, keeping your back to the window, keeping your back to the wall so you can see everything in front of you and that kind of thing. So
what about noises, like for instance, just loud noises? Would that also affect you?
absolutely.
Firecrackers?
If you know they're
I mean,
coming,
those-
if you know they're coming, it's no big deal. So at least for me anyway. So fireworks and the big fireworks
Yes.
display, that's no big deal because I know it's going to happen. But if you're standing there, nothing going on, it's all nice and quiet, and then all of a sudden you've got all this noise going on, then yeah, there's definitely the startle effect, and till you quickly realize what's going on, whether that be, you're out at the range and somebody starts shooting unexpectedly, or you're standing in somebody's farm field and all of a sudden gunfire goes off from
Yes.
some hunter somewhere that you don't know until you realize what it is and where it's coming from. Yeah, it can be very unnerving. So.
Wow.
Toby, your heart is about giving the keys of our lives over to the one whose grace and forgiveness can transform them completely. Why?
You can't move forward in life until you give up that control. My walk has been fairly recent, within the last year and a half, 2 years, my walk has dramatically changed. It's one of those things, I've always known about Christ. I've always known who he is, but the devil and demons know who Christ is too, and they fear him. That doesn't mean they're going to heaven. So just knowing him isn't good enough. You have to walk. You believe and put your life and your trust in him. Believe and obey. So it's that process of coming to grips with that. And I went to a program just a year and a half or so ago now at our church there at Lifegate, and I think I cried for 2 days during this whole process. And it was at that time that I rededicated myself to Christ in my walk, and the changes has been dramatic, in everything in life, whether it be in business or what I do for fun or what I do outside of work, or starting up different businesses, working with the children, going on, mission trips, or as our church calls them, global journeys. So it's just been a major transition. Just my pastor says he says, I like watching you. And I'm like, well, why? He says, because the growth and the change in you and just been phenomenal. You're fun to watch. I was like, okay. I don't see it, but thanks.
Yes.
So.
No, that's awesome.
Amazing.
And yeah, forgiveness can transform. And I know the restoration program I went through that too. And it was so powerful because we really do go back into growing up and into how we were treated, and hurts, abandonment issues, rejection, failure, all of those. We go back and work through it to go forward. And that was an awesome program. We talked a little bit about nothing being hidden and forgiveness and healing. We discussed your marriage in that too. A lot of people have, issues in that. They've had pain, they've had divorce, oh boy, all kinds of things. So whatever you're comfortable about sharing, feel free to do. As far as, I believe that started with restoration and then went forth. So just whatever you're comfortable with, and
Sure.
go ahead.
As I mentioned during restoration, I think I cried for 2 days straight. The Holy Spirit came over me, and I just let it all out. I remember coming home after the final night, and of course everybody wants to know how to go. And my wife and I were sitting there together, and she's asking. She's one of those that she wants every detail. What was restoration like? Because she hasn't gone yet. So she wants to know every detail. How was it? What was going on? What kind of things got brought up? What kind of questions? And I had this struggle going on inside of me, and I've had that struggle going on inside of me for years. And I was definitely not the poster child of a good husband, early in our marriage. I've heard some of your other guests, and I had to kind of smile on the inside in a way, because just the irony of it, to where, you know, some of your other guests, and yourself included, and especially yourself, you're on the other side of what, you know, of me. I was the one that caused the pain. I'm the one that caused the problems. I'm the one that was wrong, you know, in all of my actions with how I treated my wife, you know, from having what you could call an affair, not a relationship, but, you know, definitely, you know, an engagement that I shouldn't have been doing. But I kept that secret. I kept it hidden. I kept it buried, because I was like, well, why should I tell? I'm not going to tell her about it. I mean, it's years ago now. Why would I bring that up? It's just going to cause problems. But as my wife is asking me questions on how restoration went, there's just that struggle inside of me that you can't keep those secrets anymore. You can't keep it hidden. If you want to grow and you want to progress and you want to heal and be free, you have to get that off your chest. And so, but if I tell her it's over, you know, if I confess what I've done, then I might as well go upstairs and pack my suitcase, because it's over. It's done. But that struggle wouldn't go away, and as we're talking, I started bawling again. I'm not a crier, but I was, and I confessed, you know, all of those different things, you know, everything from our past, and all the anger and resentment, and why we were starting to grow apart was my fault because of that anger and that resentment, because I couldn't let it go, and I'm harboring this secret, and she knows there's something wrong, but she can't put a finger on it. And I knew that was the end, but it wasn't. Through grace, she's forgiven me for it. There's still good days and bad days when it comes to that, and I just pray for forgiveness and time. And our relationship has been better now than it has been in the last 15 years. So, because those secrets aren't there anymore; they're gone.
Yes.
So. But yeah, I thank grace for that every day, is because she didn't have to. She doesn't have to forgive me. She didn't have to let me stay. You know, she could have very easily said, "Okay, pack the bags. You're gone, buddy," but she didn't.
She loved you. That's why.
And God was in the middle of that too.
Yeah.
You know, working on her heart, I'm pretty sure, as well as yours, because He wanted you to be together, to be a couple, and to serve Him together.
Yeah.
And so God honored your honesty by helping her receive that and go through it.
And before that, I didn't understand that kind of love. You know, Pastor Brian points it out. It's agape.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it's
yes.
unconditional love. He loves that word, agape. He loves to throw it out with some
There's
emphasis.
a song.
Yes, he
There's a
loves
song,
that
yes.
word, agape.
I love it too.
But that's the kind of love that I received from my wife, that I'd never experienced growing up, because I didn't have any of that before. So her being able to forgive and let me stay is something that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting the other. So it's been a tremendous year. So.
Blessing.
It's wonderful. Anyway, our history impacts our lives going forward. This is all, you know. What are some of the steps that you would encourage the viewers to take to create a new history from here on out?
Number one, you mentioned it earlier. Number one is give up the keys. You know, put the Lord in charge. You know that He'll guide you through everything. Seek out good counsel. You know, church isn't just a place where people go and, you know, you think, oh, I'm not going to go to church. That's where people get indoctrinated. You know, a bunch of hypocrites. You know, I'm not going to go to church. You know, religion, that's just bad. That's just the church trying to control people. That's all religion's about. Because I never understood relationship. You know, I never had a good relationship, one that I could fully understand. And then, you know, thanks to restoration and finding the right location to go to, the right church, has changed that whole mindset on relationship. And you need that for growth. Not everybody finds not every church is for everybody.
Right.
You know, it's finding the right one.
Yes.
You know, the head pastor says, I don't care if you come to this church or not, but find a church. Because getting around like-minded people just definitely sets you on the right path and keep you on the right path.
Yes.
Yes,
Stronger
that's
together.
right.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yes, that's so true. And I found out too that if I was starting to get uncomfortable where I was in church, I was like, okay, is this Lord, is this you or something else going on? And so I would wait and say, God, where do you want me to be? And there are times when God has us change the church because whatever was meant to be there is over now and we're supposed to embark on something new.
Sure.
And so yes, I totally agree with you. And it's like, Lord, where do you want me to go? And he obviously wanted you to go there, and you followed, and that's where you have the peace in your heart that it was right. Let's talk about your role as Santa, because how you and you commented you treat everybody the same no matter what. You have a special love, a special touch for children with autism, which probably isn't always the easiest to do, but just loving them. There's no rejection, there's no anything. You just love, just filled with love towards all kids. And that includes your mission trip. So if you could just talk about the different types of children that you minister to and how much you bless them, because you do.
Oh, I love it. Playing Santa Claus is one of my favorite things. We even told my kids growing up when they started to get to that age where, Santa Claus isn't real. Well, no, Santa Claus absolutely is real. You may not be the guy living up on the North Pole creating toys and all that kind of stuff, the myth. But St. Nicholas is very real, and the whole idea of St. Nicholas is to bring joy and happiness to children around the world, especially in his community. That's why he was sainted and became St. Nicholas. That's the whole story behind Santa Claus is St. Nicholas. And I try to continue that same passion to make kids smile. My wife asked me, she says, well, when they ask you, why do you play Santa Claus, what are you going to say? I said, well, I don't know. I just do it because it's fun. I enjoy it. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, is that because your childhood wasn't all that great and you want to make sure theirs is? I was like, well, yeah, that could be. It could be a possibility. I mean, deep down, that's a very good possibility.
Yes.
But I just want to see them smile. And every child deserves a smile.
Yes.
No matter what their situation. I never did, global journeys or mission trips. I've never done them before. This was my first one. We took a trip down to Costa Rica to this place called Hogar de Vida, which is an orphanage for younger children. They'll be there from birth up to, I believe it's 10 or 12, somewhere in that area where they age out and either go to a different type of location or they get adopted out or they return back to their birth parents. And we went down on that trip, and it was, my heart just expounded even more. There was one case, a little girl was braiding my beard as we sat there on the slide. It was absolutely awesome. When a little girl wants to braid Santa's beard, you let her braid Santa's beard, But autistic children, just like any other child, they just want to be loved, and they may need a little bit more patience than other children, but I've seen a lot of other children that definitely act up quite a bit when they see Santa Claus, so they're no different than anybody else.
Sweet.
So.
Well, lastly, what thoughts would you like to leave our viewers today regarding the impact of 3 people, I love this, closest to us that we can have on, the rest of our lives that we can, please tell us about that, because I love it.
There's 3 people that everybody needs to have in their life. You need to have a Paul in your life, you need to have a Timothy in your life, and you need to have a Barnabas in your life.
All from the Bible, right?
All biblical, all from
Yes.
the Bible. A Timothy in your life is somebody that looks up to you for guidance, somebody that you can help mentor, somebody that you can pass knowledge on to, somebody that looks up to you. That everybody needs a Timothy. Sometimes you'll have more than one. Depending on your capacity, you could have a whole bunch of Timothys in your life. And everybody needs a Paul in their life. Paul is somebody that you look up to, somebody that you seek guidance from. I wouldn't be where I am today without Pastor Brian from Lifegate Church. He is my number 1 Paul. I got a couple of others that I look to, but you'll notice I quote Pastor Brian a lot. I think it makes him laugh because he's like, you do listen. I said, occasionally. So, and then everybody needs a Barnabas in their life. Barnabas is somebody that's right there on your level. He's they're not better than you. They're not looking to you for guidance. They're your equal. They're somebody that you just bounce ideas back and forth from. but they're the one that doesn't cut you any slack. You know, some people in business and in life, you get yes men that, you know, no matter what you say, they'll agree with. That's not a Barnabas. A Barnabas is, if you're doing something wrong, they're going to point it out. If you're doing something right, they're going to point it out as well. But you have to have all three. You got to have somebody to look up to. You got to have somebody that looks up to you, and you got to have somebody that will call you out whenever you're doing something wrong.
Amen. And you know, with that calling out, it should always be calling them out in love, calling them out in a constructive, not a destructive way.
Absolutely.
And that is just so awesome. And so we want to thank you today so much
you.
for being on the program.
Yes,
Again, Toby Meyer, Awesome Santa, as well as having Crown Roofing. And just look him up on Facebook, Instagram, I believe it is too.
Not on Instagram, but Facebook.
Facebook.
Santa Claus at realbeard.com is if you're looking up on Facebook. That's
Yes, Santa Claus at realbeard.com. And also I want to let you know that next program we have Sammy Troya, who shares most inspiring stories about giving to others and how that reaps such a great reward into our own lives. So again, thank you, Toby, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye-bye now.
okay.